is Sandra Simmons. I'm an undergraduate research assistant here at State University in the Department of Chemistry, and I'm a chemistry major with a minor in forensic science and biology.
Could you describe to us what your first year was like at Sam Houston?
Yeah, so I transferred here from a community college. It was spring 2022, so it was like right before COVID, so it kind of altered my college experience.
How'd you get introduced to the prospect of what research was for your chemistry major?
Yeah, so I transferred here in spring of 2020. Because of COVID, I wasn't able to join a lab until summer of 21, the next year. So the next year, around spring, Dr. Vialta, was my Gen Chem professor, so Dr. Vialta Certez, he basically asked me if I want to join his research team. During my first semester, I was interested in doing research, and I approached him with a flyer about research that I found in the chem department that kind of outlined all of the professors and their research, and I was just interested in learning more about how to apply for the summer research program and what it was about. But because of COVID, it kind of shifted that experience. But it was good waiting because I got a better foundation in general chemistry and even OChem. So at the time, I was in organic chemistry too. So it kind of helped build my foundation a bit before I started research.
Are you planning on visiting graduate school or thinking about going to one or going to somewhere else?
Yes, so I want to attend graduate school in the future. I'm hoping to travel to some places this summer. Applications are due in December this coming semester because I'll be graduating in spring 2024.
Nice.
So I'll start applying and start looking around.
Awesome.
But I haven't settled on one yet.
Gotcha. Currently, what research group are you working with right now?
Yes, so I started working with Dr. Vialta Certez in his lab, and then he encouraged me to talk to other professors and check out what other research was available in the department. So I started talking with other professors, and I really like Dr. Megan Hinsey's research. She works in biocatalysis, so that's currently the lab that I'm working in right now.
Did you have any idea of like what research meant and like how it was applicable in a university?
Yeah, I think before I started in university, I wasn't quite sure what research meant. I think even in general chemistry classrooms, you hear about like all the big experiments, like discovering the neutron or the nucleus, and you hear about all these big groundbreaking discoveries, and you kind of get that picture of research. So actually joining a lab made me realize like it's a lot of everyday work and small experiments that lead up to those big discoveries. So you're mainly doing meaningful work, but it's everyday work that leads up to those big discoveries. So you're not like making big discoveries every day, but you're collecting data and running experiments.
So what is the goal of the research that you're currently working on, or is this a little confidential? Because we know some labs don't really want to talk too much about what they're doing in the process.
Yeah, so in the chemistry department, there are other research groups that you do have to sign NDAs to work in their lab, but with Dr. Hinsey's research, we're working in biocatalysis, so most of it is not super confidential. There are some parts that we don't want to publish, or like some parts of our poster that we don't want to show, just in case we do want to publish that data. We don't want other people stealing it or getting ahead of us, but most of it is pretty open to discuss about. But yeah, we're working on biocatalysis, so currently we're working with Bayer villager monooxygenase, which is a biocatalysis enzyme that catalyzes the Bayer villager reaction.
What would be like the general experience of working in that lab?
Yeah, so working in the research lab I'm currently in, we do have overarching goals that we want to meet, but every day we kind of do small reactions, and those reactions have various processes that take time. So an overarching goal is for me to do organic synthesis to create substrates for these Bayer villager monooxygenase enzymes to work on. So we have a substrate library with all the goals of all these substrates that we want to create.
Mm-hmm.
So some parts of lab are slow, like we have to pick one of them. We can't just make all of them at once. And then we have to do background research, go through journals and articles, SciFinder, and look up previous reactions that have been done and optimize them to fit our lab conditions and what we have available. And so that could take a while. And then setting up the reaction could take a while. Some of these chemical reactions take 12 hours, some of them take 6 hours. So setting those up and waiting, monitoring the reaction. And then there's a whole purification process that has to be done. So it kind of just depends on your day, like what step and what process you're going
through. So this sounds just like such a long and thorough process within you. How much time a week would you spend on this lab, and how many times do you meet with your mentor, your faculty? How long is the whole process each week to week?
So when I first started in the lab, it was during the summer. So the summer is a little bit more intensive. We're in the lab 5 days a week from 9 a.m. to like 4 p.m. It's about like 40 hours a week. But during the semester, a lot of the professors understand that you have classes and that you're a student. So normally, I would say I go in the lab about 2 times a week for about like 5 hours each day. But some weeks we don't go in the lab if we have like tests coming up, and we just communicate with our professor during our weekly meetings. If we have a busy week, she completely understands that we're not going to get much done in lab. Just updating her weekly, or even when I'm working in lab, she'll pop in and I'll try to update her on what I'm working on.
Is the lab currently funding students for either semester, summer or fall?
Yes. So during the summer, we have to apply for funding usually through the department. There's a Welch grant that most of the students get for summer research. And then I recently was awarded the ACS Division of Organic Chemistry Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship. So I have a fellowship for the summer that's funding me. And then I believe Cassie has one of my lab mates, she also has funding from another program here at SAM. So there's a lot of places to find.
A lot of options to find that.
Yes.
That's good. Awesome. Are there any kind of, I guess, safety concerns or any kind of risk involved with your lab?
Since we are a biochemistry lab, we do work with E. coli to synthesize the variable German oxygenase enzymes that we're working with. So since we do work with E. coli, it's considered a BSL-1 lab. So we have to wear like blue lab coats, and everyone in lab has to wear them. Even if I don't work with E. coli, because I'm more on the organic synthesis side, I still wear the blue lab coat, and we still take precautions and wear PPE all the time and make sure that if we are handling reagents that are necessarily dangerous, that we handle them like they are, just in case. But there are some reactions that require work with dry ice or a heat mantle, so we have to be careful with that. And some reagents are flammable and toxic, so we have to be careful with that.
So in what ways is your research related to STEM-based courses?
Yeah, so because I'm working with organic synthesis, a lot of organic chemistry and general chemistry has applied to what I do right now. A lot of the chemical reactions are similar reactions I saw in my organic chemistry class. And a lot of techniques I use every day are basically skills I learned from the organic chemistry labs that I was a student in before. So a lot of those skills that were in the teaching labs, I apply to research lab.
Awesome. So in terms of your research journey, were there any challenges whenever you first joined the lab? Because based on experience, did you already have some experience whenever you joined the lab? Were there any challenges like just overcoming anything and getting used to it?
Yeah, I think whenever you first start to do something, it's a learning curve and it's a process. So I was lucky enough to have experience working in Dr. Vialta's lab first. So I knew lab etiquette and kind of the lab process before I joined Dr. Hinsey's lab. But it was still a lot to learn about collecting data, storing data, and like saving all your data in a manner that someone else, if they were to look at it, they can reproduce what you just did. So using Excel, and both labs are different. So I was doing more general chemistry and materials-based chemistry in Dr. Vialta's lab, and then I switched to Dr. Hinsey, so it was different. And I think the hardest thing that I struggled with at first was if I wasn't getting necessarily good data, that I struggled like sharing that at first with my PI, but then realizing that even bad data or no data is still data and it's still progress is important. So not being like ashamed to share with your PI what you found or lack thereof.
So mentioning about sharing, how would you describe the environment itself with the team? Is it more of a collaborative environment, more individualistic? How would you describe it?
Yeah, so in Dr. Hinsey's lab, the lab is somewhat divided between the biochem and the organic synthesis side, but she tries to reinforce that a lot of what we're doing is collaborative work. So a lot of the substrates and standards that I'm synthesizing are going to be used on the biocatalyst that the biochem side is making. And so there is some overlap, and we do talk to each other and help each other. So there's definitely teamwork and collaboration.
Okay. In terms of scheduling, how have you balanced out school, work, and life?
Yeah, that was, I think, transitioning from doing research full-time in the summer to doing research during the semester when you also have classes was a struggle at first, but learning to prioritize like what you need to get done is what helped me a lot. So keeping track of my schedule and prioritizing that my classes need to come first, and then if I have time for research I can do that, and just communicating with the PI that maybe this week I need to study more, or maybe this week I could focus on research more. So just making priorities and making sure I allot a specific amount of time to get what I need to get done.
Awesome. Have you made any connections during your time at the lab, such as maybe like a mentorship or friendship? And has this lab helped you with your academic career across that process?
Yeah, so a lot of my lab mates I didn't know going into working in Dr. Hinsey's lab, but now we have like a group chat and we help each other like pick scheduling classes. We want to try to get classes together, and we take some of the same classes together, so we help each other study. So it's been really nice to not only make connections with people who are in the lab, but also have that expand to class.
Could you just continue with like introducing us to what the conference was and what it was like to win the award?
Yeah, so I attended the Southwest Regional Meeting for the American Chemical Society Conference, the SWARM Conference in Baton Rouge, Louisiana last fall, and I won an award for a poster presentation. And so preparing for that, it was mainly making the posters, so I actually had to go in and create all of my figures and write everything for the poster. And then with the help of my PI, she kind of helped me put together a brief presentation and like walkthrough of the poster. And then we also at the chemistry department had a practice presentation session, so I was able to also get feedback from other professors and students and do a practice run through of the presentation before we went to the ACS meeting. And then at the ACS meeting, I was able to share my poster with other basically students and professors that came to the meeting and other scientists. And I think there was a couple judges, and they each had to pick a winner, and so I chose me.
And they chose you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Was your travel expenses funded by the university or?
Yes,
Okay.
The travel expenses were actually funded by EURECA.
Oh, by the STAP Awards?
Yes.
Nice, awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so was this your first time actually going to a conference in general, or did you already have some experience with that?
Yeah, so when I started doing research for Dr. Bialta, he encouraged us to go to a lot of conferences. He wanted to make sure that we got exposure and practice presenting our research. So it was important to him that we not only were collecting this data, but we're able to basically organize it and present it to other people and explain it. So that was a big help, that he encouraged us to do that. So I went to several conferences with his lab, and then I've done a couple conferences with Dr. Hinsey.
So could you describe it to us? Like, what was just the experience of just hearing your name getting called out for winning this award? Were you surprised, or was there a little bit of confidence already?
I won a couple awards. So when I was with Dr. Bialtz's lab, we did a poster presentation at the Texas Academy of Science at UHCL in spring 21, I believe, or spring 22. I'm not sure, but I won an award for my poster there. And so he likes to tease me that I'm always going to win an award anytime we go to a conference. But I wasn't expecting to win the poster award, so I was surprised.
Would you recommend research to students across Sam Houston? Because a lot of students often look at the ratio of faculty, because of a lot of bigger universities, the ratio is 250 to 1. And a lot of people here often say their relationship with their faculty is a lot more closer because there's just less people in the classroom and it's just more approachable. How would you recommend it across all facets to students?
I definitely would recommend that students reach out to their professors about research, even if they just want to hear about the professor's research. A lot of professors are excited to even talk about their research with their students. So even if their lab is full of students, I'm sure they'd be more than happy to just share their research and explain to you what it would be like. And even talking to other students that are in research labs currently is really helpful to get an idea of what the professor is like to work with and what the research environment is like. So I definitely would take advantage of the fact that it is a smaller campus and there's less students in the classroom, and you get a more one-on-one relationship with your professor to definitely try to build a connection through research, because it's been very beneficial.
Can you describe that mentorship a little more? Just tell us the details about how this mentorship works and how it's just helped you as a student.
Yeah, so when I was working in Dr. Bialtz's lab, it was very beneficial just because it was my first research experience, and he was very helpful in walking me through basically building my confidence of working in the lab and showing me exactly what I need to do in research, and he helped me basically build up my confidence of working in the research lab and walking me through what exactly he wanted me to do in research labs, so I wasn't just left alone and had to figure everything out. It was very guided, and he walked me through basically any research that he wanted me to do. He helped encourage me and mentor me through that, and it also helped with presentations. He helped basically look over my presentations and critique them, so I got a lot of good basically critiques and criticisms that helped me become a better presenter, and I think that's why I'm good at presenting now, is because I was able to see
Did this critique seem I know critiques can often was it harsh but in a good way where it was meant to build you up? Because a lot of professors have different ways of critiquing their students, and a lot of students are scared of that kind of critiqueness. Could you describe how they introduced their feedback to you?
Yeah, so when I was in Dr. Bialtz's lab, we had a lot of emphasis on practicing presenting and practicing speaking and sharing our research, because that is a big part of research and grad school. So it's important for your future. Even if you're going into a job, you need to be able to communicate your findings with whoever's above you, your boss or your superiors or whoever. So it was important that we practice weekly, even just reading something that we wrote. And then when we did have presentations, we would put something together and he would give feedback on it. And it wasn't harsh feedback. It was very much coming from a place of wanting to give us good criticism and feedback and critiques to help us improve. And he would also help us a lot and show us exactly precisely what he wanted us to improve. It wasn't just this is bad, fix it. It was very helpful criticism.
That's good to see. There was actually a reason behind it. It wasn't just there to be mean. It wasn't just there to put you down. There's an actual reason. So that's just something a lot of students would like to hear, because they're often scared about the prospect of research, especially with some that have little to no experience. So We're really happy to see that. So currently there's a lot of stigmas that exist with research that exist across so many disciplines. We're not really sure about your field. Were there any kind of stigmas or stereotypes that you attached to research that were harmful or helpful, or anything that you've noticed? Because for us, they say research isn't really meant for undergraduates. It's more meant for a graduate level program. Do you have anything to say about these stigmas or anything you've heard from it?
Yeah, I think a lot of students have misconceptions about what research is and why it would be beneficial to them. I think, especially in the chemistry department, a lot of students might be taking chemistry courses but are like biology majors, so they might not see the benefit of working in a chemistry research lab. But I know a lot of the professors want students from other majors and departments, because they want to be able to get different students to come in and to help build their resume for graduate school. It also helps with potential jobs after, just to get a sense of what everyday research would be like if you want to go to grad school, or even if you want a career in basically a laboratory setting. It gives you an idea of what the day-to-day work would be like, and instrumentation and skills and techniques that you would use.
So with graduate school, how are you feeling about it right now compared to before you joined the research lab? Because, you know, December's coming up, that's whenever all the applications are coming, and a lot of students probably have no research experience whatsoever and are panicking because they just joined a research lab now and they feel like they don't have this much experience. But with your experience in hand, how do you think you feel about graduate school right now? Is there some confidence in there? Is there some kind of security?
Yeah, from what I understand, a lot of graduate programs, they want students who have research experience, because a lot of graduate school is primarily research, and that's what you're working toward. Your thesis or your dissertation is building that research and being able to organize it and collect that data and present it. So I think research gives you a very good experience of what that would be like, and building your skills and helping you prepare for that. So I would say that research has definitely helped me get an idea of what grad school will be like, and I feel more prepared for graduate school. I think students who might not have had research up until their junior or senior year, I think it's just important that they have research at all, because some undergraduates don't even have research. So it's important to realize that your research experience is still valid.
Yeah.
And it's important that you are able to even have that experience.
Yeah, just get your foot out the door. You know, even if it's 1 year left, it's still important to get in there and be exposed to that environment. So one of the last questions is, do you have any advice for any student right now that's thinking about research but isn't really sure how to approach it based off experience and based off just the unknown?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend basically just going up to a professor that you like or that you're comfortable talking with and asking them about their research, because a lot of professors do have research labs and they want to share with students what they're working on because they're excited about their research. And so it's a good idea just to go up and talk to your professors, upperclassmen if they're in research labs, even some of your TAs are in research labs. So just going up to them and asking them what they work on in the department, because most of the time they do have a project that they're working on and they're excited to talk about it and share what they're working on.